One fundamental benefit of using dry herb is that the substance is not processed. Vaping is many times related to concentrates or to some liquid, and these are processed. If you have really an organic grown plant, it's still unprocessed, you grind it right before you are using it, and you can put it in a vaporizer. If you go to smoking, you have 500 to 600 degrees, and you clearly burn it. And by burning it, you produce all the carcinogenic substances you produce in the moment of smoking, and you inhaling that directly.
And from the lighter too, you have those in addition.
I believe the benefits of vaporization are so clear. It's not combustion, so it's healthier.
Yeah.
The other thing is, of course, it's much more tastier.
All right, welcome back to the Bioactive Podcast. Today we have an exciting episode and a huge giveaway this week. So there's actually going to be multiple giveaways. We're going to be giving away a STORZ BICKEL Volcano dry herb vaporizer, which if you've been listening to this podcast, you know that is one of my favorite devices on the planet. It's one of the dry herb vaporizers, and it's an absolutely goal for any stoner to have a Volcano. It is a tabletop vaporizer, so it's quite large, but it is legendary. And it's in the color onyx, or that dark black. It's awesome. These retail for $700. We're also going to be giving away a portable dry herb vaporizer from STORZ BICKEL called the Mighty, and these retail for $400. So if you want to enter to win either of these vaporizers, I'm going to ask you to enter to win that you need to take a quick survey that's going to be linked in the show notes of this episode on dry herb vaping, so that I can learn more about you guys and who has tried this consumption method and what your general thoughts are and where you want more education. I will also share the results of the survey back to you on this podcast, so you can also learn from your own data. So again, that survey will be linked in the show notes, and you can enter to win by taking the survey. It shouldn't take more than 5 minutes to complete. And the winners will be chosen at random, and you do not need to be a US citizen to win. I'm also pre-recording this introduction. By the time this episode airs, we should have a new member of our family, both the Bioactive family and my personal family. So happy birthday to my little Leo baby. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can see that my nails are green for Peridot, which is the August birthstone. I'm just so excited. So make sure you take a puff of your dry herb vape, kiss your pup on the snoot, and join Jürgen Bickel and I for a conversation about dry herb vaping in beautiful Berlin, Germany.
All right, welcome back to the Bioactive Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Riley Kirk, and I'm here with a very special guest today, Jürgen Bickel, who is the managing director and co-founder of STORZ BICKEL, which if you watch the podcast on YouTube, you've probably seen a volcano at some point in the episode, because it's my favorite way to dry herb vape and consume cannabis. And I'm really excited to talk more about dry herb vaping during this episode, so we can educate the listeners and just talk more about the story of STORZ BICKEL. So welcome to the show, Jürgen.
Thank you, Riley. Thank you for having me. Really happy to elaborate a little bit about vaporization of dry herbs with our devices.
Awesome. Also, just for setting, you should watch this episode on YouTube, because we are in Tiergarten in Berlin for this episode, so it's kind of special and also just absolutely beautiful. All right, I want to start with just kind of contextualizing and learning more about your first time consuming cannabis, or when you really started to get an affinity for this plant, and if smoking was the only way to consume when you first started consuming.
Yeah, I started, I do not recall exactly, of course, something like 16, 17, maybe first experiences, but nothing regular. This started more in the 20s, a little bit more at that time to start a bit regularly consuming cannabis. Of course, in Germany, cannabis is many times used together with tobacco. So I was also a tobacco smoker here in the younger days, and of course, at this in the 90s, mostly there was only hash available here in Europe. There was not really dry flower was not really, it was known, but it was not really available widely. And so people used it as, together with cigarettes and myself as well. Yeah, so this was, but of course I had let's say, a relationship to the plant from the very beginning, like a lot of people are doing in this industry. And of course, the key moment was when at the end of the 20s, I quitted tobacco. I had enough of nicotine. I think this habit mixing it with nicotine is completely unnecessary. Also, the effect with nicotine and cannabis is different. And then I decided when I was 29, so enough with nicotine. I put nicotine on the side. And then you are a little bit left with hash alone, and you don't know really how to consume it, what to do
A little
with it
intense
exactly.
too, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You can use small pipes and stuff like that. And at that time, a friend of mine, Markus STORZ, he developed a Volcano vaporizer. Yeah, and so I was living in Peru at that time in South America. I
Cool.
worked and lived there, and I visited my hometown, and I visited Markus, and he had the first batch of Volcanos, and
Did it look like this? Or
it did look like the outer shape completely
Okay,
the same.
cool.
Of course, the classic version, not this is a digital version, the classic version, and it looks still the same. Really, from the outside, it's after 25 years still looking the same. And I bought a Volcano for myself, one of the first clients, let's say, of the company was called Vapor at that time.
That's cool.
Not STORZ Bickel. And so quitting smoking really brought me in contact with Markus, with the company. And then a year later, I came back from my time in Peru, and I met Markus again, and I started to help him out with a few things. And then we came together, and then the STORZ Bickel story started.
That's so cool. So was the Volcano the first dry herb vaporizer? Did anything else exist on the market when you first were trying out the Volcano?
I would say the Volcano was the first serious device.
Serious,
Of course,
okay.
you had things like handmade machines, always with conduction, some hot plate in some jar or something worked, or people were using heat guns, on bongs, things like that. But everything was not really for inhalation. The thing is, if you use cannabis on an inhalative way, of course, you always create an aerosol with a vaporizer or with a joint. You take it in your lungs and you put the active ingredient in your system, in your body. And of course, the inhalation process, I would say, is per definition always a medical process. Mm-hmm. Whatever your end goal is, So it was very important to have this on a really healthy way, on a approved certificate way, to really take also the end customer really serious, also to take the recreational customer serious. Many times people, they say, okay, for medical you need GMP, you need this and that, and for recreational everything goes. And of course we are not in that opinion. We think a recreational user has the same, let's say, right like a patient to receive a clean and healthy and tasty aerosol to use his favorite herb.
I love that. I would like to talk more about just dry herb vaping in general. For anyone who's unfamiliar with it, they might think all vaping is the same. It's just vaping, but there's kind of categories of vaping. So you don't need to talk about like exactly what's happening, but would you mind describing essentially the process of dry herb vaping?
Yeah. I mean, one fundamental benefit of using dry herb is that the substance is not processed. I always compare it with food. The more processed it is, the more things can happen. Let's say, can be added, taken out. Vaping is many times related to concentrates or to some liquid, and these are processed, taken out, CO2 extraction, terpenes out, terpenes in, and whatever.
Less natural, just in general.
Yeah. So if you have really an organic grown plant, it's just you have the flower, it's still unprocessed. You grind it right before you are using it, and you can put it in a vaporizer. But if you look to the flower itself and to the active ingredient THC, in the flower it's as THC acid. It's an acid. It is not usable for the human body, so you must transform it into active THC. Decarboxylation is called this process, and this process is happening through adding heat. Then you can add the heat by smoking a joint. You can add the heat by cooking it, things like that.
For edibles,
For edibles, you can do the decarboxylation that way. But the most obviously approved and validated and accepted way is via vaporization. And why is it? Because in vaporization, in our devices, the maximum temperature you can reach is 230 degrees Celsius. And the combustion point of cellulosis is 235 degrees, so you always be below the combustion point.
That's the key, below the cellulose combustion point.
You know, if you go to smoking, you have 500 to 600 degrees, you know, and you clearly burn it. And by burning it, you produce all the carcinogenic substances you produce in the moment of smoking, and you inhaling that, you know, directly.
And from the lighter too, you have those in addition to all of these extra compounds.
Exactly, and so with vaporization, you keep below the combustion point, but at the same time, you need to be above 180 degrees Celsius, 350 degrees Fahrenheit, more or less. You need to be above that, because below that, decarboxylation does not work.
Okay.
So you have the window between 180 and 230 degrees. There it works. There decarboxylation happens and it does not burn. This is why temperature control is so important for vaporization. And the more you are able from your technology side to maintain an exact temperature, the better is the taste, the better is the reproducibility, the better is the production of the clouds, what people are expecting. So this, let's say, is a little bit the basic behind. So the central of every vaporizer is the heating technology and the heat management. You know, and I think this is one what we at SMB know how to do. You know, we know how to produce an hot airstream of exactly 350 degrees with minimal fluctuation, and this is what is the center of the quality of our devices.
Speaking of that, so STORZ Bickel makes, I believe it's the only medical certified vape devices. Does that have to do with what you're talking about, maintaining that temperature, or how it's manufactured, or what materials go into it? What kind of goes into making a medical certified vape device?
Yeah, it's I would say it's a lot. You know, It's a lot of different things. You know, there's three central things you need to have as a company. You must be certified under a quality management system.
Okay.
And it's called as a norm for it. It's the norm 13485 quality management system. That means that all your processes are documented and you are following all your defined processes. And then once per year, somebody is coming into your company, is making an audit and looking if you are doing what you say you are doing. You know, and there are tons of requirements in this quality management system, like traceability, you know, like customer service, like post-market surveillance, and things like that. You have to follow. You need a person responsible for regulatory compliance, and a lot of things you need to do. This is the company itself. Then on the next thing, you have the device itself. The device itself needs to follow, in that case, the 60601 is the right norm on the medical devices. And there you have to prove that you are safe as a device, that the materials you are use are device.
So you have to do studies for that, like third-party testing, to make sure that there's
testing, of course.
Okay.
You analyze the hot airstream, and so is there anything left over from the plastic or from the metal you are using, so you have clean that. But also on the electronic side, on the safety side, usability side. So there's a whole technical documentation. It's a big package, you know, risk analysis, risk assessment, you know, what can happen. Can somebody get burned? Can somebody get damaged? So you have to really answer all the questions. What are potential errors and how you are preventing it? Yeah. So this is on the device side, so that you have a safe device, you know, a safe company, safe device. And the last thing, of course, so that it is a medical device, you need to prove that it has a medical effect. You know, if not. So in our case, we have provided by studies with healthy patients. They have used the Volcano with the bag. And you make blood analysis, and you see that THC is coming into the bloodstream, you know, and then you see, of course, also there's the medical benefit. You know, what the THC exactly does in your system, this is part of the physician.
Someone else's project.
Exactly.
But you just need to make sure it's getting there.
It's getting there, right? So and then there is normally assessment what says that the risk to benefit ratio is positive.
Yeah.
You know, that is the clinical evaluation you have to do. So these are the three pillars you need to do. And you need to maintain, you know, you need to maintain the quality management system. Your whole company is following that. If you want to change anything, you need to work with change requests, you know. Everything needs to be documented. In quality management, they say everything what is not documented is a rumor. You know, so you cannot say, but we talked about it now. Also in the development itself, if you take development decisions, why you take, for example, a peak plastic and not another plastic. You need to document why you have taken this decision. What leaded you there? Was it the heat? Was it the cleaning? Was it the color? Whatever it was.
Not just it being cheaper and more
available.
available.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can also have this, but quality management does not look into monetary things so much.
Yeah.
They just want to see the quality. So this is all you need, you know. And of course, in the case of STORZ BICKEL, we are coming out of Tuttlingen, South Germany. Tuttlingen itself is considered a world center for medical devices. There are around about 500 companies who are producing medical devices, chirurgical instruments, endoscopes, things like that. You know, this is really a center of it. So for us, it was from the very beginning clear we want to also be a medical device manufacturer, independent if it is about cannabis or not. So in Tuttlingen, we understand ourselves as a medical device manufacturer like everybody else. You know, cannabis, of course, is cannabis, but you know, at the end of the day, this is what I believe overall. You know, cannabis must be also seen comparable to something else. You cannot say because it's cannabis I can lower standards or I can do it differently. I can do it cheaper. I don't think so. Yeah. Same thing like with medical and recreational. Same thing like with cannabis is something else. The sector must be on the compliance side and must prove that we can do it as serious as everybody else as well.
I love that you keep bringing up recreational or adult use consumers because although it is a medical device, there's so many reasons why a just recreational consumer would love to use the device. So not kind of siloing the medical market. One reason I remember first using the Volcano was reducing smell. I used it in a dorm room for the first time inside. Is that something that you find that it's less smelly and better for indoor environments compared to smoking, which you can get some adverse effects and of course bother your neighbors or just something annoying?
Yeah, obviously. I believe the benefits of vaporization are so clear.
Yeah.
You know, they're so clear. Of course, one thing we talked about combustion, it's not combustion, so it's healthier.
Yeah.
The other thing is, of course, it's much more tastier.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost tastes like it smells. One guy last week, he told me, he compared it, you are eating herbs.
Yeah.
You know, something like that. And this is really another big advantage of vaporization. It's more on a connoisseur side. So this is these are really great benefits. And of course, I mean, if you are, for example, in a sleeping room, in a car, whatever, and if you smoke a joint, you will feel it many hours afterwards that somebody has smoked a joint in this room.
Oh, yeah, it lingers.
Exactly. And of course, with vaporization, you have also a little bit of smell, but after a few minutes, it is gone.
Yeah.
You know, and it is also there much, much easier. And also, and if you are a patient, obviously also the acceptance is much higher. Also maybe in your family, if you are sitting around and smoking joints and think, okay, this is medical, people may question it a little bit more than if you use a device, you don't burn it, it is healthy, it is validated, it is approved. And then this is obviously much better.
Yeah. So you mentioned doing analyses for testing for THC, making sure that's getting through as part of this protocol for a medical device. Were you also testing terpenes? And do you have any data on the amount of terpenes that come through with vaping versus smoking? Is part of the reason it tastes better because more terpenes are getting through? Or is it just less clouded by the smoke and the other things that are present when you smoke a joint versus vape it?
Yeah, obviously everybody knows when you smoke a joint, the taste you get is, of course there's some terps are left over something, but of course you burn it. You know, they have this 500, 600 degrees Celsius, and of course not much is left over. And of course, if you look to a joint, you start at the beginning and you take this hot 500, 600 degrees air through all this material, and of course you kill the terpenes very fastly.
And you're kind of vaping out the other terpenes as you pull through the joint and pull that hot air through. You're kind of ruining your terpene experience slowly throughout.
If you look to the Volcano, normally on a normal, let's say a session, we always say the first balloon is the most tasty one.
Absolutely.
You know, the most tasty one. And the second balloon is, let's say, the most effective one.
Okay.
You know, first you have a little bit of taste and a little bit less of THC, more terpenes directed, and then the second balloon, everything is already a little bit dried, already a bit heat up, and then you have the real effect. You have really a lot of THC. And then, of course, the Volcano, for example, is very efficient. You can use various balloons until everything is really taken out of the active ingredient, all active ingredients are taken out of the herb. And so it's also very efficient because, of course, the material is not burned. You can use it. You can many times even people bake afterwards with
I
something.
do it. I make topicals with mine, all the leftover.
Yeah. So it's already decarboxylized, and you can still use the what is inside. So it is extremely efficient also. Yeah.
Cool. I would love to talk more about the balloon process. Do you, when you're using the Volcano, are you keeping it at the same temperature and just filling balloons until there's no vapor left? Or sometimes, as you're talking about, I'll set it really low first to just get that terpy taste and really taste the flower. And then I'll slowly start to ramp it up and then essentially keep going until I don't see any more visual vapor out of it. But what's your process?
First of all, of course, what it has influence on the vaporization process. Of course, first it's the quality of your dry herb. That's obviously important. Of course, also the quantity you put in. If you looked at the Venty, you have 150 to 200 milligrams you put in. Then it's how you are grinding it. The finer it's grinded, the more effective is it, because the more surface you have where the hot air can really.
Finer grind is better for vaping.
Yeah. Exactly, the fine grinding is very important. So, and then of course, then comes in the next thing is temperature. In general, the lower the temperature, the better the taste.
Okay, yeah.
So I start, for example, with the Venty with 175 degrees. We have here with talking plus minus. This is 350. 348, 350 Fahrenheit. This is where you start. This is relatively low.
Okay.
So the vapor you will get is really a light vapor, a tasty vapor. And then when you start to see no vapor anymore, like in the balloon, when you see the balloon, the vapor is very light. It's always transparent. You can look through it. Then you see maybe the material you have already taken out all THC. Or you have to higher the temperature. So in general, what we are doing here with the Venty, then when you see it getting too light, you higher the temperature. With the Venty itself, we have here put the double click, for this reason, you make a double click, and then you are at 377, you make another, you're on the 404, and then you can flip around, and then you higher the temperature. And with the higher temperature, you get more THC out. Of course, then the terpenes are already gone. The taste is not so good anymore, but of course, still it's very effective.
Do you find it to be more of a sedating effect at higher temperatures?
I don't think so.
You just feel higher.
And you just use it. I mean, if you have access to cannabis, maybe it's you maybe say I always want to have a tasty vapor and I change my material earlier. But maybe if you are sitting in Japan and it's very difficult to get access, and you are relying to really use it very efficiently and you really want to take everything out, then you maybe even on the Volcano, you maybe even take the herb out of the filling chamber, regrind it, put it in again.
Oh, I've never thought of that.
And really taking out everything you can, So if you want to, you can be very aerative, you can very efficient, with your material and really make sure you use all the THC what is inside.
So you mentioned, and I do this too, of using the leftover stuff after you've vaped everything out that you can get vapor of. Do we know what's left over in the already been vaped flower? Is it really, really heavy terpenes? Is it really, really heavy cannabinoids? Is there any THC left, or are we getting other things out of that?
The THC is definitely left. It's just the main ingredient. Of course, there are other cannabinoids also left. Terpenes, I would say, it's clearly over. I mean, we made studies. You can fill up onto 10 balloons easily.
Whoa!
But of course, the last 3 balloons, of course, it also goes down in taste.
That's like a bell curve, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you don't need to be so efficient, you maybe change it earlier.
Depends how weed rich you are is how often you change it.
Exactly, yeah. Depends also, the balloon, the 60 centimeter balloons. If you talk about the balloon, the big benefit, if you saw the balloon the first time, many people say, what is this? Balloon looks a little bit strange to me, but what it really does, it separates the processes of vaporization and inhalation.
Yeah.
First, the machine does the vaporization for you with an air pump, a very steady airflow, a very steady temperature, and creates for you in the balloon a very nice ready aerosol. This then you can pass around, for example, to a patient. The patient is not in contact with electricity, with heat, with glass, with whatever. He can fall asleep. It's no problem at all. There's almost no draw resistance out of the balloon. The vapor is ready. You cannot do anything wrong, more or less.
It's amazing. You can carry it around too.
Exactly.
That's one of my favorite things about the balloons.
Local mobility. You can walk out on the garden and the terrace a little bit.
My husband calls it my pacifier because I always have my little balloon with me walking around.
Yeah. So this is a big benefit of the balloons. You have this local mobility. You have the reproducibility. You have some sort of dosing, 1 balloon, 2 balloons, 3 balloons. People know, okay, this is more or less,
And there's bigger balloons. I saw that at an event one time because I just have the regular size balloon, but somebody had one of the mega ones. And I was like, dang, that's kind of cool.
We have the 2 feet, the 3 feet, and of course we have one for the trade shows, the 10 feet.
Oh my gosh. Do you have mini balloons? I always thought when my tolerance was really low, I always thought like a little balloon would be kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that, but you also, maybe you can stop the air pump a little bit earlier and
you're right.
You don't fill it up fully. It also works.
It just feels less cool when your bag's not
I know. But of course, if you buy a Volcano, there's always one valve where you can change the balloon by yourself.
Okay.
There's also, you can buy the rolls and you can make your own.
Oh, I guess I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can make your own one. And
so you just tie the end of it and.
Exactly, you tie the end of it.
Easy.
And so it's possible. Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions of when someone should change a balloon? Because again, like I essentially use it until I start to see resin build up and then I change it. But is there any like hard and fast rule?
Yeah, I think, that it really does not function anymore. Takes really a long time.
Yeah.
So what happens first is once it's optically, you see a little bit the condensation.
Yeah.
Over time, so it looks a little bit brown. So you maybe don't like this on the optical. And also
looks dirty.
And also the taste. This condensated material has also still terpenes inside, so they stay there for maybe weeks. So at some point you'll think, oh, hey, I need a fresh taste, I need a fresh look, and then I change it. Many people are doing. We are producing in Tübingen more than 2,000 balloons per day.
Wow.
To keep up with the worldwide demand for balloons for all the volcanoes who are out there.
That's so cool. I always thought too, as the resin builds up, cannabinoids love to stick to cannabinoids. Once you have some in there, things just love to stick to itself. So I would assume you're losing a little bit. Like if you let your balloon get really dirty, I'd assume you're losing a little bit of your potential medicine in there.
Obviously, one function of the balloon, on the mobile devices, we have on the top here a cooling unit. The Volcano does not have a cooling unit because the balloon itself cools the vapor down, so that is a decent experience to inhale. But by cooling down, you have the effect of condensation.
Yeah.
That is what's happening. This is why you also have to take care of your cooling unit, like with the balloon.
Yeah. Seems like a good time. I want to discuss the difference between the Volcano, the Venty, and the Mighty, and what's different about these. Is it kind of an evolution, or do they each hold kind of different uses? Obviously, these are more portable.
Yeah, obviously the Volcano here, of course, this is 25 years now on the market. I would say the unbeaten device. And it is really the most, let's say, automatized machine. It makes the aerosol for you or for the patient, or you can prepare it for someone else, for a patient or for a party.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. But it is really the machine. You cannot do anything wrong, more or less. But it is, of course, a tabletop device. You need to stay at home. You need to have electricity,
You don't bring that in your car.
Yeah, exactly. For example, here in the Tiergarten, we don't have a plug at the moment, And then there comes the mobile versions inside. We have the Venty. Here we have our Mighty Plus. These are the two flagship devices, I would say, we have at the moment. The Mighty on the market since 2014. The Mighty is also a approved medical device, like the Volcano Medic. We have the Mighty Plus Medic. And the difference between these two, besides of being mobile, is the heating technology.
Oh, okay.
Here we have a fast heater. Here it is a little bit slower.
Yeah, that heats up really fast, the Venty.
Exactly, 20 seconds.
20 seconds.
Yeah, but also makes it very good to use. Maybe also if you don't want to use it too openly, too publicly, you turn it on. You can take a few hits easily, you turn it off.
Yeah,
and it's very easy. Yeah. So of course, these are mobile devices. The Venty is a real, I would say, our powerhouse. I don't think you can do more out of 2 batteries at the moment. 20 seconds heat up time, 20 liters per minute you can inhale. The
Wow.
customer feedback is overwhelming positive. People using it really a lot. This morning I saw a post, somebody using it more than 400 hours.
Wow.
And still going strong. So it is really a great device and really loved by customers. We still have not made a medical device out of it. We have also certified it, but following the norm UL 8139 is a special vaporizer norm, where all vaporizers should follow. Looking a lot about battery technology and the problems what can be with that, And here we have a new mini heater. It's only this little part.
Oh, cool. So that second cube is the heater.
Exactly. They take it off. Here you have the filling chamber where you can put in the dry herb, or you can put in, if you want, a capsule. There's a small capsule.
So people fill these capsules at home with their flour so they can take it on the go and know exactly how much to put
there's
in.
a capsule caddy where you can have up to 4 of these capsules. Keeps your device clean, keeps everything clean. You don't touch any plant on the go. You do everything at home. Everything's prepared. Also dosing, 150 milligrams each cap. Exactly. I've used 3 capsules. You know exactly what you have used.
And especially if you like ratios, like if you're putting CBG flour and THC flour, you can have multiple of those things around your neck with your different ratios that you like.
And obviously, if you look to the technology, and then many people think vaporization is an easy thing to do, but of course you have here outside, of course, air temperature like today, 20 degrees Celsius, Then in the filling chamber, you must have minimum 180 degrees array exactly. And then when you are here at the mouthpiece where you're inhaling, you want to be down to 50, 60 degrees again. So you have this to heat up, you have this to cool down, and this is where you need to have an exact temperature management to do this finally, Here in the Venty, we have a special detector of airflow detector, a sensorium detector, and he detects exactly if you take a big hit, a small hit, what you do, and it immediately heats. Of course, electronic, it measures it 100 times per second, and it really works nice and gives this exact temperature management of the whole device.
So the cooling device, that must be why it's such like a smooth hit, because you don't have that hot air rushing into your lungs. It's just kind of it's a warm air that just feels better.
Exactly. If you make a direct draw, without cooling, of course, it's too hot. You feel it on your tongue. You feel it's hot. It can happen by a joint also. Can be. So this, of course, we want to try to avoid. The thing is to make the experience as smooth as possible. THC itself can a little bit irritate you anyway. Sometimes you have a little bit of cough. It's the THC itself, the effect of it. But the device should not add anything to that. So it is the heating management, but it's also the cooling. If your heating works well, you need cooling as well.
I didn't know there was a cooling element. That's really interesting. Yeah. So you have the capsules. Are there any other smaller things? Like, is there any other medical things that you can add to? Is there a capsule for the Volcano that's just a big puck, or?
Yeah, there is a filling chamber with a reduced filling chamber, a reducer, so that the capsule also fits in the Volcano.
Cool.
Of course, there is a tray where you can fill 40 capsules at once.
Oh, cool.
It's about fun. You put 40 capsules, you put 6 grams of cannabis, then you get 150 milligrams to each one. You can close them relatively easy. You need maybe 10 minutes to fill 40 capsules. And 40 capsules in the Venty with, let's say, a herb with 25% of THC goes a long way.
That would last you a while. It's like meal prepping your cannabis, just getting everything ready.
Yeah, there you also see how efficient it is. You go 150 milligrams, 150 milligrams. If you make here like they're doing here, like 3 paper joints, these big things, they see how efficient it is and how good you can dose it all.
Yeah. I love the portable devices, but something that first really made me love the Volcano was how much research was being done with the Volcano. And maybe some of that was necessary through the testing that you have to do for medical devices, but even just reading research papers on vaporization, on terpenes, you'll see a Volcano used because it's capturing all the aerosols, which in a lab, you need to do that. So can you speak on any of the research that's been done with the Volcano over time?
Yeah, of course. The Volcano has become the gold standard for researching for inhalation of cannabis because it's also comparable. That is very important. Of course, I think we started the process with Donald Abrams in California, University of California, where we done the first study in 2005. So this was when vaporization was still at the very beginning And this was, let's say, the first study. And then, okay, all other studies use the same device.
Yeah.
And it is, of course, because researchers trust in the device and they know, in research, it's very important that it's reproducible and comparable. If not, your whole study is not making a lot of sense.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
if you start to do joints, it's you can have a little bit more, a little bit less, a little bit tighter. You know, you have
In the airflow, you're talking about airflow. With joints, you can have airflow all over the place, and that changes all of your data immediately.
Exactly, and so the last 20 years there came together, I would say, 12 to 15 really main studies with the Volcano, you know. We have also now the Mighty here. There's also this like the mobile version. Some studies, of course, they want to have a mobile use and want to have this. So the Mighty Plasmatic is also already considered in studies. And of course, we are happy to be able to provide this tool for the researchers. And of course, we receive also the documents, what is also helpful to maintain our medical device status.
Yeah, very cool. So I also remember when I first got my Volcano, it came with a pamphlet about vaporization temperatures of other herbs. So I'm someone who grows a ton of herbs in my garden, including chamomile and lavender. And it's something I immediately started to experiment with. And I think chamomile is my favorite to add in because it kind of adds that honey flavor. I'll add it right into my cannabis. I don't usually use it alone. I'll add a little sprinkle on my cannabis. Is this something that's regularly done by medical patients to like increase terpenes, or are other plants being studied to be vaporized for their medicinal purposes through these devices?
We can say that other plants are obviously not as much studied as cannabis. They don't have the same interest. Also, from the feedback we get from our customers, there's a certain percentage of customers who are really doing it. No, but I think the majority is using purely cannabis. But of course, for us, any device, not only medical device, also a household device, how we call it, needs an intended use.
Yeah.
An intended use of the medical device, obviously, is the application of cannabinoids. You know, but of a household device, maybe if you want to ship to a country where cannabis as medicine is not legal, then of course the intended use is for hops, for chamomile, for peppermint. You know, it works. It can be done. You know, but it is not so widely or not so prominent, not so widely used.
Gotcha. So in countries, states, in Germany, places where it is medical use, can these devices be covered by insurance or be like compensated at some point so that the price can be reduced for medical patients? Is that part of the medical program?
In every country a little bit different. Yeah, in Germany itself, for example. It's not generally covered, so people need to ask their insurance. But like for the cannabis itself, you have to go through a process that they cover the cost. So normally, if they cover the costs of the cannabis, of the dry flower, then they also cover the costs of the
that's great.
device. You have, for example, in Canada programs where they subsidize veterans. For example, they get $300, something like that, as a subsidy. You have maybe, for example, Australia, where they are sales tax exempt, you know, VAT exempt. So every country has a little bit different program. And of course, what is good for the medical device, also from our point of view, you see a lot of regulations around the world where people are a little bit struggling with vaping, but more or less with the vape pens and with the ingredients there. And then they start to try to avoid these things having it on the market, and they prohibit it. And normally then we also fall under the same category. Also, we are not meant initially, but we fell under the same category. So with the medical devices, then normally we can still have access to the market, and the patients are still provided a safe device.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so I'm not saying this should ever be the situation, but say somebody has cannabis that has mold in it. They don't even know that their cannabis is moldy. Do we know if any mold components are vaporized or if that stays in the flower? This is more of like a theory question, so don't worry.
Yeah, we don't have really investigated so far, but what you can have, if you look in general about hygienic standards and maybe contamination in general, what you do have as a pro is you have to 180 or the 350 degrees Fahrenheit. You know, and this normally kills most of what is biological active.
Okay.
You know, so you have some sort of self-cleaning process by heat, you know, But if mold or mold particles can be in the vapor, maybe. In general, if you have, at least if you know it, you should maybe not do it.
Well, right. And I guess the medicine, the vaporization technology is part of it, but the quality of your flower is absolutely part of it too, whether that's terpene profile, how much terpenes are in it, cannabinoid profile, strain, all of that. So kind of just a theory question. I want to talk a little bit more about the German market in general, why we're so excited to be here for Mary Jane in Berlin. Like, it seems like everyone's so stoked about what's happening in Germany. Would you mind kind of describing what that landscape's like?
Obviously, I would say, yes, we are proud here in Germany to have the situation we have. Although it's still a little bit unperfect, but it's very good. Much better than in every neighboring country here. You know, we had the first steps in 2017. Where they allowed medical cannabis, like in many other countries, was the first step. Also here, with pressure from courts, say, hey, you must give access to people who need it. There's no reason why you cannot. So, and then the last government made a new cannabis law, in 1.5 years ago, it came into effect. And it is obviously, it was a great moment because the center of this law is to say cannabis is not a narcotic anymore.
Oh, love that.
And then you get out of all these narcotic regulations, and you have your own regulations for cannabis. So you are not comparable with cocaine or heroin or something like that. So this was very good. It's not a narcotic anymore. And then, of course, if you are a cannabis user here in Germany, you can have access through growing by yourself. You can hire up to 3 plants, or you can become a member of a social club.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is for a recreational user. So, and for a medical user, of course, you can still have your pharmacy. What we are observing in the moment, what is discussed highly, actually these days, is the telemedicine, of course. But I think this was desired. They want to have a low entry level so a patient can get access to medicine through online.
So telemedicine, so you have like a video call or a phone call with a physician and you say, this is why I need a medical card. And then they say, absolutely, write you on, and then you can go to a pharmacy and get cannabis? Is that kind of the...
Exactly, yeah. So, and then they have, of course, a little bit automatized that process. So it's maybe not really an interaction, only a questionnaire.
Okay,
and the pharmacy,
a survey.
And you first always select your material. So it's a very low barrier to get your pharmacy. And obviously can be expected that some recreational users are also following this road. And this is a little bit discussed, and the conservative side, they're talking about misuse, but I don't think this is a misuse. I mean, you are allowed to process cannabis. You are allowed to consume cannabis. You're allowed to grow cannabis. You are allowed to be a social club member. And now, if you may get a prescription and you are not so extremely ill and you have not tried everything else out and so on, I don't see where is the big problem out of it. Of course, maybe the system was not designed for that, but let's say, where is the negative effect if somebody gets cannabis on a GMP level? Again, here the point, a recreational user has the same right like a medical user to get a GMP cannabis. Why we should have a recreational user get something where you can use fertilizers, I don't know what,
Well, right.
So I don't see the problem at all. And also they talk about misuse, but if you ask, hey, but what is the real problem you want to solve? What is, of course, you don't like this route of as a source for these people. But at the end of the day, I think there's nothing to do about it. And I hope, and then I'm also a member of the board of the German Cannabis Industry Association.
Awesome.
And we are trying really to talk to the government, to talk to the stakeholders and to tell them, hey, look, there is no big problem you need to resolve. In general, if you look to back to the 1.5 years or since April last year, where we have with the new law, if you look what happens, if you walk in the street, maybe from time to time you smell a little bit here in Berlin. But if you look to my hometown, South Germany, a small town, Tuttlingen, not a lot has happened. There's not, you don't see it too much. It doesn't happen too much. So I think, and if you look to the Mary Jane show where we are here, if you look how huge it is, there you see how the black market is put it out of the game.
Yeah.
In a moment, the black market has a very difficult situation in Germany. Exactly the effect they want to have is coming, because you get for €8, you get cannabis out of the pharmacy for €8 with, I don't know, above 20% of THC on excellent quality. The black market cannot compete with it.
Nobody
they
can.
cannot
That's
compete
crazy.
with it. And so I think they have really done a good job. Everybody is criticizing the law, but I think the law is better than what people are talking about. And of course, the question now for the industry, what will come in Germany? Okay, it's the question, what will the government do? And you see the health minister, there's this misuse, So my expectation, and a little bit also my hope, a little bit, I hope it's not wishful thinking, but my expectation is a little bit that they, at the end of the day, they cannot agree what they want to change.
Yeah.
So what do you really want to change on this law? Okay, they say 25 grams is a lot to carry around. Is 15 grams much better?
Well,
It's not, but what's the difference? Where's your reasoning? Some people are getting from the pharmacy cannabis, what is legal cannabis, so they're getting it from the pharmacy, so it's the wrong source. But what is really happening? Where is your real problem? Where is the people who is damaged?
Yeah.
Normally if you have if a government wants to side with you want to take away a situation where you have problems, where you have people suffering, or where you have third parties damaging or something. But all this cannot be found in cannabis.
Yeah.
This is the big thing about cannabis. With cannabis and cannabis users, you do not have big problems.
No.
If you're here in Berlin, if you are here at Tiergarten, walk here at night. If you meet here 3 guys, they have smoked a joint, you have no problem at all. If you meet here 3 guys who are drunk,
scary, yeah.
That's the difference, And so I think overall, I really hope that we are coming into a situation where it gets more normalized.
Yeah.
And not always with the ideological lens on it, and always say, this is a big problem, and you never see where the problem really is.
Yeah.
So from this standpoint, I hope the social democrats are against the Chris social from Bavaria. They want to have it everybody in jail who smokes cannabis. Should be forced to drink beer in the morning. This is their approach to drugs.
Yeah.
And I think this is all not helpful. So I think overall the whole law is a big success. Mary Change is a big success, and shows you what you can do if you really legalize it. And it's an international example.
Yeah.
It's a great example. Germany is not a small country, and it works well. And you see it slowly, but it is coming. And so I really hope that this goes further. The further steps would be pilot projects at the moment. We will see if some cities are really doing it. I hope that the establishing of the social clubs gets more widely, also more easy.
What is the vibe of a social club? So is it just consumption, or can you purchase products and then consume? Can you bring your own products to a social club?
No, here the social club is not so. I mean, the social part is the growing part, not the consuming part.
I'm thinking like a room full of people smoking weed.
So then I don't know. Of course, these are a few things in the law who you think, I don't know what really the idea was. But of course, the social club can have up to 500 members. Each member can purchase, I think, 50 grams per month.
50 grams of flour, hash, anything?
Only flour at the moment, not processed, only flour. And if you are below 21, only 10% of THC as a maximum.
Okay.
Yeah, all good.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's fair. That's not a problem. But the social clubs are still, let's say, the regulation is starting. Also, the governments do not, the state governments don't know what really to do with it. And so we need to get more experience. And also there, we need to lower, there is nothing really happen. But consumption is not allowed.
Oh, okay.
In a social club,
Is it a physical place, or is it like...
Yeah, I mean, you must grow somewhere.
Okay.
This is a physical place.
Gotcha.
The idea is that they grow together. I don't know what they think about that. Everybody comes in part-time and cuts or does something.
Okay. So it's like a community garden, kind of?
I mean, this is the idea from the law. Of course, the reality out there is not, you cannot grow high-quality cannabis with volunteers. That's a little bit difficult, This was a little bit maybe a romantic idea of how a social club works. But whatever, it is starting to work. It is starting to have another source of cannabis.
And is that to allow people to have more variety of so if you only have 3 plants that you're growing at home, maybe don't have like the strain variety that you're looking for, but through the social club, you could have a lot of other options.
A lot more. Yeah. Obviously. I mean, they're talking about that you do. It's better if you do not have a spontaneous source available.
Oh.
So you should have, you first should grow it and harvest and then dry it and cure it and then it's not spontaneous and then you have, but yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I like the concept of allowing people to get closer to the plant and like helping people grow, because growing cannabis it can be easy, but growing quality cannabis can be quite difficult.
Yeah. And of course, there's also on the government side people, they don't like that people growing by themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like, they also don't like people doing beer by themselves.
Right. You know? Anything in secret, they're like.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we are losing control. But I think, hey, what control, you know? I mean, also the law says you have 50 grams of cannabis as maximum what you can have at home. I don't know if somebody comes to the idea that you have to limit the alcohol you have at home. I mean, if you have one bottle of whiskey or 10, I mean...
who cares?
You know, what is it, you know? And if you have 50 grams or 500, what is the difference, you know?
Yeah.
You can, I mean, we are talking about dosing of 150 milligrams. I mean, you just cannot use it so much. Then also it degrades over time, so it's not something. Cannabis is not something you can store for 10 years.
Yeah,
you know, after 10 years, it is like throw it away.
You're back to the cellulose.
Yeah, so the problems, let's say, resolves by itself.
Yeah.
So I think the 50 grams is also, of course, with 3 plants, you have a kilo.
Yeah,
you're a good grower, you know.
Yeah, you got enough for a little while. And you said that people can process their own, so. The hash isn't available through the social club, but people can make their own hash?
If you're a plant, if you're a good grower and how to do it, of course you can. You can do extraction, you can do whatever you want to, yeah. I mean, one solution to the 50 grams is, of course, make concentrates out of your 500 grams.
Right.
You know, there you also see what means 50 grams exactly, and But I think overall, the important thing, and would I recommend the government, hey, just let it go.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to control that so much, you know.
It's always under a microscope compared to other things. Like you mentioned tobacco, you mentioned alcohol. Cannabis is always under a microscope compared to these other substances.
Yeah, and it's a little bit, you don't know really why. Yeah. You know, it's really a strange thing, you know. You take the less dangerous drugs. I don't want to say that cannabis is totally... unproblematic, and we have people with problematic use, and maybe tendencies that people always tend to have higher THC concentration and more tolerance and more concentrates, and there are also, let's say, things who can be questioned, you know, can be looked at. But overall, compared what you said with alcohol, with nicotine, it's much less addictive. It's much less also a social problem. Alcohol is a social problem.
Yeah.
You know, if you live with somebody who uses a little bit too much cannabis, maybe it's also not ideal, but if you live with somebody who uses too much alcohol, it's an extreme problematic for your family, for your kids, for everybody, you know.
It literally kills you. Like,
it kills you. Yeah, and then you can really, with alcohol, you can really talk about really that third parties are damaged.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see that families are damaged, or at least are really suffering out of it, you know. And with cannabis, this is much less the case, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, the same thing with nicotine. Why nicotine is you cannot smoke in rooms anymore? Yeah, because of course you are also this is also not happening with cannabis. So I don't know where it really comes from. You know, all this obsession with cannabis on the conservative side. Yeah.
Yeah. Luckily, data's on our side for that, so we can always kind of prove that it is safer.
Yeah.
One more question about hash: can you use hash and concentrates in these vaporization devices?
Yeah, you can use it, absolutely. Yeah, it's a little bit different what our people are used to. Many times concentrates are related to have, let's say, one strong hit. You know, this is many times. Here is the same thing. You have really a decent vapor, a smooth vapor. What you need, of course, for the concentrates, you also need to have a surface. We have here a special liquid pad, what you can put into the filling chamber. Oh, you do have
a special chamber.
A liquid pad, yes.
Okay, cool.
Also in the capsules are also available with the liquid pad.
Very cool.
Inside, you know. There's also but I only have heard yesterday that some people are using hemp wool, you know, as a base, and then put their concentrates on it.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have to try it out. I heard it yesterday, but I need to try it out. Yeah, it sounded promising. At least the people really said it was very good. So yeah, let's try that. So there are forms to use it. But it's not like say like you have a T10 nail, you heat it up and you put some concentrate on it, you take one hit and you are completely sound. That is not the way, our way, you know. We are still also on the concentrate side. It's on the connoisseur side.
Yes.
A little bit, hey, take your time, make your balloon, make your inhalation.
Yeah.
First the terpenes, then the effect, and then also with concentrates or device work that in that way.
Very cool. So we're getting towards the end, so I have just a couple more questions, and then I have a couple community questions from the listeners. But curious what the next steps for STORZ and Bickel are. You have these awesome portable devices. You have the Volcano. Is there something else you're working on, or are you just going to keep advocating for these devices and keep moving forward?
I mean, of course, we keep advocating for our devices. You know, the Volcano, 25 years on the market.
Which is amazing.
The Venty, you know, the new flagship, clearly, if I walk through my chain, I see a lot of Venties.
I've seen a lot,
too. Yeah. So this is very nice. But of course, there are things to do. You know, of course, we have a R&D department, and of course, we are constantly working on and thinking about it. You know, so I think towards the end of the year, we will have something a little bit more affordable and more mobile. Version, you know, what we will bring up.
So keep trying to make it more compact.
A little bit more, a little bit smaller, a little bit more lifestyle. So in the moment, if you look to the Venty, of course, it is our SMB design. You know, it's a real powerhouse what we have. You know, and we try to a little bit attract a little bit maybe less professional customer. You know, who are in the moment more going to something very cheap.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of competition. When we really welcome competition, and we have a lot of competition out of many things out of China coming. And the difficulty is a little bit with this minor quality vaporizers is that people are trying it out, they are unsatisfied, they may be going back to smoking. You know, this is one thing. And of course, and for our device, they need a little bit time to really say, okay, hey, I need to spend a little bit more to get a better quality.
Yeah.
So many times, what is happening is that our devices are not the first vaporizer somebody is purchasing, but normally it's the last one they are purchasing.
Yeah, then the cheap ones are, I mean, I've tried a cheap dry herb vape and you can like hear it crackling. Like it's just, you know that the temperature is not
exactly
not
the
good.
taste. If you try it out of the box, you immediately, So we are going in this direction, and of course we are seeing in the market the interest in concentrates, but we're seeing the solutions are available with the cartridges, ceramic or not. It is convenient, that is clearly very convenient, but it's not really tasty. They all have the difficulties on the taste. Maybe at the beginning it's still okay, but also the 5-10 thing, if you use it a few times, taste, dosing, everything is a little bit difficult with this.
With the carts? Yeah, and we have data that they're like leaching some metals into the products, which talk about a medical device. You're lowering your medical value as
and what we talked before, processed, which machine you processed, which CO2, which extraction you used. Yeah, you took out the terpenes, you put it on later again.
What's in there? You can't see the product. You have no idea.
Exactly, and of course we had also this horrible accidents with the E-acetate in the United States.
Oh, the vitamin E
died out of it, and things like that. Mm-hmm. So this is why my recommendation: the less processed, the better it is, And of course, but we are thinking about what can we add from our point, on a high quality, on a medical level to this section,
Yeah.
And I don't think it is a 510. No, that is not a medical device, I
agree.
And so we will look into that as well. And like this, and then of course, I guess new ideas will be realized over time. And
do people come to you with ideas and they're like, "Hey, I thought of this really amazing"?
Yeah, of course, and sometimes there is some value in it, and sometimes, of course, there is. The thing is always, it's a development project of the vaporizer is to make. Hundreds of or thousands of compromises. It shouldn't be too expensive. It shouldn't be too big. It shouldn't be too slow. It shouldn't be too less of an airflow. It shouldn't be that this, and of course many of these requirements are competing against each other. And then you might always find the right compromise. For the device. This is a little bit the art to really make a vaporizer.
How many does it take years after kind of conceptualizing a new vape to actually get it in someone's hands, or is it shorter than that?
No, minimum, I would say, from the idea to realization, the minimum time is 3 years, I would say. Once you have an idea, then you need, of course, to prove. You start with the heater, how you really want to heat, what is your filling chamber, then you add the cooling, then you need how much power you need, batteries, then a little bit user interface, what you want to show, how many buttons you want to have, and you go step by step, and once you have it, then you have to really to prove it that it works, then you have to test it, and then you have to go into production.
Yeah.
And into production, this is more or less 1 year. If you know what you want to build, you need approximately 1 year until you can build it, until you have sourced everything, build all injection tools, all that, and also until you have done all your certification, UL certification, medical device certification, whatever, which route you want to go, certification route, what is your regulatory strategy, and then you need that, and so I would say 3 years is unfortunately, everybody wants to have it fast, there it is. But I see, if you look to the Mighty, it was coming up in 2014.
Yeah.
Then they're coming up the Mighty Blast. So also, even if you have a product on the market, Mighty Blast, then Mighty Blast with USB-C, Crafty Blast. So
you can upgrade a little bit in between.
You also upgrade, of course. Now everything has USB-C. You don't have any other plug anymore. You can fast charge, things like that. With the Volcano, with the Volcano Classic, the Volcano DJ. Today we have the Volcano Hybrid. Where you can also use the tube. Then, of course, a little bit also of colorful. We have the Volcano Onyx, the black Volcano, who is especially here, if I can show it, that the Volcano DJ, this is in the Onyx version, is in the moment the most popular one.
That's the one I have. I love it.
And it really looks really great, So yeah, but of course, we are here in the industry to stay. We have 25 years behind us. We have a lot of experience, but we want to be the next 25 years also here, and this surely we won't do by not developing anything and then letting things go. So we keep being ambitious. We feel that we are the market leader in terms of quality and in terms of certification.
I would agree with that.
Absolutely, and of course we will keep going this road, on our way, a little bit slower than maybe some other companies, but we are not in a rush. This is something that what quality involves, to be not in a rush,
I love that.
And be ready when you are ready, and then put it on the market. Of course, we are also under financial, let's say, pressure. Of course, everybody wants to see grow. That is what the world is about. But at the same time, we need long-term growth,
Right, and as new markets open up, you have more opportunities to grow without even having to create a new product.
So we do not have, let's say, an opportunistic strategy. No, we have a long-term strategy. We know what to do. I have clearly in mind how this company should look like in 5 years. What should be our product offering in 5 years? That is clearly in my head. And so I know I'm trying to lead the company to that direction.
Very cool. Okay, just a couple community questions. The first one comes from Evan, and he said, I would be curious as to what temperatures are associated with what outcomes. And we kind of discussed this a little bit, but I noticed that when I put my temperature really low, there's almost more of that like monoterpene, more uplifting effect, and you get less of the sedating feel that you might get from those heavier terpenes. But you said you don't really notice an effect there?
I mean, you notice difference, but the question is it coming out of the temperature or coming out of the cannabis itself?
Yeah.
And if you can generalize it, and if you can say always 170 degrees or 340 Fahrenheit, this gives you terpenes A, B, and C, So I find it a little bit difficult to say that. We have customers who swear, they say, I'm sure, with 165 you have to do, and 175 then, and then you this and this and this. Even at the Volcano, you can program. Even we have programs you can put and can higher the temperature through the process. You can do that, but at least I can say there's a lot of other influences too.
Yes.
Let's say it that way.
Okay, cool. Okay, this question is from Howling Buds, and they're wondering that sometimes when they're dry herb vaping, the taste is almost like burnt popcorn. Do you think that's because their temperature is too high, or they haven't cleaned their device, or their flower just is lacking terpenes? Because it's not really something I've experienced a lot, but I'm just kind of curious.
I mean, it depends on which vaporizer you are using. I would say with our vaporizers not. Of course, if you use something cheap and it's a conduction vaporizer. Conduction vaporizer, what means there's just a hot surface. We call it the frying pan principle, because it's just a hot surface, the cannabis on top of it. Of course, it gets hot and some air goes around, but it's a very uneven. And of course, then you can have at the center where you really burn almost the material, Same thing, for example, in concentrates as well. The coil, ceramic or not, it's in the soup, it gets very hot, it is still a vape coming out, but it is very close to smoking. So I would say no, I cannot confirm that. And I think if with our devices, I never had something like a smell.
I don't have an issue with that either. But I have with other devices. So maybe the question's more
if you use the Volcano and you put it to 230 degrees at the beginning, of course, you will get a vapor, a very dense vapor with a lot of THC inside, but it's also a little bit harsh.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Yeah, but I love cranking my Volcano up. It's like my favorite setting. Okay, the last question is, somebody loves when their vapor or smoke is filtered through water. Is there any sort of water filtration add-ons to any of these devices, or if it's something you've thought of adding?
Also we know that there are customers who are liking that, and
I think it's partly the sound, just the
blah blah, exactly. And but we have the feeling it's a little bit unnecessary. Yeah. Of course, what we see, what we not like to see so much, but it is of course that you see that people taking the Venty and putting it on top of a bong. Things like that is happening. We don't like to see that.
Never thought about that.
We see stuff like that people are using it, and of course here it fits exactly to some bong adapters, so you can use that. We by ourselves not. No, we believe that the water filtration is not necessary. In the worst case, it takes out active ingredients, what is also filtering there.
And it's usually filtering components of smoke that we don't want in our body, not necessarily a vapor. So.
And also, if you look then to the water is always, you must be very hygienic, cleaning very fastly, because this water very fast, it looks like, especially in a bong, it looks immediately
I've seen
worse.
Some scary bongs.
Yeah, exactly. So this is not something, it is at least not necessary.
Yeah.
And also for a nice experience, it is not necessary. But if a customer wants to do it, they're happy to do so and use it in some other ways. But all devices, at the moment, we have not planned to add any water or filtration.
That's totally fine. Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on this podcast, and also just shout out to you, because I love seeing you at all of these shows and just being the face of the company and just giving people access to you at all of these different shows. So it's been so cool to have this opportunity, and of course to see you here at Mary Jane Berlin. So it's been awesome to have you on.
Thank you for having me. Of course, I understand my role, of course, on the one hand, face of our company. Of course, it has part of my name in it, of course. But at the same time, I also understand myself as an ambassador for tolerance approach towards cannabis. To accept cannabis as something which is not 100% unproblematic, but it's not as dangerous as people are doing. And I hope that the government around the world giving access to the people. The last 12 months, our company shipped devices to 120 countries.
Wow. What's the biggest country?
Of course, the US is the biggest one out of it, but we also ship to Saudi Arabia, to Kuwait. We also ship to Russia and to, if possible, or to Eastern Europe. We also ship to Asia, wherever we ship to. What shows you that cannabis is used around the world. You don't find a country independent from the legal situation where cannabis is not used.
Yeah.
Even with death penalty, cannabis is used.
Yeah.
So I think this plant is part of this planet.
Yeah.
And it has relationship to us. We have an own cannabinoid system, the endamine system. So I think we can have an easygoing approach to it, and I'm working for this, and trying to also, with my personal example, to say, hey, you can do normal business, you can have normal life, you can have family, kids, everything, and you can
be successful.
Cannabis and successful. So this is let's say a little bit my mission.
I love it. You're an amazing advocate for the plant, and I'll add your socials. Is there any other way you want people to stay in touch with STORZ and Bickel or yourself, or
of course,
learn about products?
I'm mostly on Instagram. Of course, this is the main platform. STORZ and Bickel as well. And of course, we invite everybody to buy our products, obviously, and to enjoy them. And I think we have really a good offering with our product. I always say we have a win-win situation. Of course, there's a little bit of price involved for the quality you receive, but
same thing with cannabis.
In the show where we are here today, so many people are coming by and say, "Hey, thanks for the product, thanks for being here. You changed my life." So this is really a message we get over and over again. So it is really very nice, and we are also very thankful for our customers doing so a huge and a continuous fan base. And we hope we can satisfy them and surprise them with new products in the future.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan. But thank you again. And to all the listeners, we will see you in a couple weeks. But mad love, everyone. Catch you then.
Thank you. Bye-bye.